Yeah, so just give me a sec. Great, yeah. So, yeah, I'm Will. I'm a PhD at Leiden working with Joop. So in this talk, what I may want to mention or show is a few of the highlights and key points from a paper that popped up on Archive this week, if you've had a chance to read it, looking at the X-ray cross cosmic shear cross correlations and what we've been able to learn from this, or what this can indicate about large-scale structure. And this is all done using the FLAMINGO simulations, which you are now all experts on, thanks to Joop, so we can skip through this pretty quickly. But a few of the key things to point out. Okay, that's not working. Oh, just a bit slow. Okay, great. So the few key things to point out here is that when I'm talking about feedback, specifically it will mean AGN feedback in that case. And when talking about increasing or decreasing feedback, I guess based on yesterday's discussion, not to be too sloppy, but it'll all be relative to Flamingo's fiducial model, which is calibrated to pre-Eurosita gas fractions and weak lensing measurements. And then when we have the strongest and weakest feedback models within Flamingo, they are just recalibrations of Flamingo's model to shift the gas fraction up or down. But one part of Flamingo that Joop didn't mention, that will feature quite heavily in the few coming slides, is the light cones. So we have full sky Hillpix maps, particles and halo catalogs projected onto the sky, out to many redshifts. We have stored gas, black holes, stars, etc. So we can make a full set of mock observables from this. And once again, just give it a sec. So I'll be replaying Joop's greatest hits from his talk, where we see, when this eventually clicks over, there we go, with the different measurements coming out again and again, they seem to suggest that we want stronger feedback than Flamingo's fiducial model, or at least on the left here with K as Z, and on the right with the cluster gas fractions. So yeah, you can see that the stronger feedback model here is much better fitting with the Eurosita samples as opposed to a pre-Eurosita, which fits the fiducial model. However, as Joop pointed out once again, when this clicks over, but with the X-ray scaling relations from Eckert, with the X-ray scaling relations from Eckert, we're seeing that they seem rather consistent with the fiducial model from Flamingo when you look at just the luminosity temperature scaling, whereas otherwise the stronger model will be inconsistent with these data points. So if you put them side by side, you have to ask, something's definitely going on. If we want to look at the models, that's a different job. But for what I've done is look at a brand new probe and see if this can reveal any new information about this feedback strength and what should be required. So I think my computer's a bit slow and old at the moment. Alrighty, yep. So this is the X-ray cross cosmic shear measured probe, or cross correlation. It was first put out in 2024, and it's particularly interesting because it should just measure how hot gas traces the underlying matter distribution, and it should be quite sensitive to clusters and groups, which is where we're seeing this change in feedback strength, or required feedback strength change. And not only that, but it should be sensitive to different halo masses, redshifts, different parts of clusters and halos compared to TSZ, KSZ, what have you. So what I've done with this is take Flamingo, recompute all the light cones from the particles, so every single X-ray measurement on the sky, redo that and convolve it with the Rosat response matrix in the soft band, and then also apply the beam for the PSF at the end on the cross correlation. And for the lensing, is just apply the DES redshift source distribution. You'll see this in most papers. If you want more, look at the paper as well. And so this is what we get. So here I've just compared all the different Flamingo AGN feedback strengths to the data points of the X-ray shear cross correlation. And lo and behold, only the fiducial model works. So problem solved, we've done it. No stronger feedback needed. However, this is a very, very, very strong assumption in general, because what I've done is completely neglect all point sources. So what I do is go back, add in all the point sources. So I take all the halos, find the biggest black hole, and have to abundance match them. If they're above 0.02 photons per second, I remove them because they're resolved. And ask me about this in the questions, XRBs are negligible. We do this abundance matching because Flamingo does not have enough bright quasars or bright luminous AGN above redshift 1. So I take all the halo black holes and just fit them to these curves until I run out of black holes. And this is the result. So you see here that AGN definitely not negligible in their contribution from the dashed line. That's just AGN cross shear, or AGN X-ray cross shear. And it completely just boosts the cross correlation up. Enough that, when it ticks over, yep, enough that we see we now fit to the data points from gas where only the fiducial model is less than, say, 2 sigma, the difference, to with AGN, it's now basically dead on according to this. So, but that is due to the data points having very high error bars as well, due to the cosmic shear in the first bin. But regardless, we seem to prefer stronger feedback, but not to the same extent as KSZ and Irasita. So, this is not the most satisfactory thing for me. So I had to go back and play around with the abundance matching again. But now I inject some scatter onto the circular velocity luminosity relation, which circular velocity is a good tracer of the dynamical mass as seen here. And then I start at 0, scatter imposed, and just keep increasing the scatter. As you can see on the left, that's the general contribution from the X-rays of AGN to the cross correlation. Increase the scatter, decrease the contribution. Put it back in, and now we get everything being pretty possible. Well, everything but the weakest feedback, where that's never going to fit. But if you increase the scatter enough that no change can be seen again from AGN contribution, the fiducial model now fits, but so can the strongest feedback mode as well now. So in general, if I put all these together from the error bars, you can get the fiducial model, stronger feedback, even stronger feedback, and then the strongest mode of feedback, and even the strongest mode of feedback, and you reduce the S8 parameter as well to all fit with the data points. So there's a lot of gray room, a lot of wiggle room here with the influence from point source contamination. Right, I just want to tick over again. Okay, so if we want to go back to our initial question and ask, can this probe move the needle in terms of the gas fractions AGN feedback? Okay, not really. You can see the fiducial model may agree, but that's, and we can agree with the X-gap and what Eckert is pointing out the scaling relations and pre-Irasita measurements, but we have to ignore AGN feedback, or contamination, sorry, or make it very negligible by this scatter that we add in. However, to really agree with KZ and Irasita gas fractions, we have to do the inverse. We have to reduce a lot of the scatter on this black hole relation when we do the abundance matching, and now we can agree that way. So, not the most conclusive in terms of this probe, but we can say it does indicate there should be a slightly stronger feedback compared to the fiducial model. However, it's very much limited by contamination from unresolved AGN. So where does this go for the next? We need to resolve theta AGN to make this probe useful to really improve its constraining power. So perhaps an Irasita cross Flamingo is coming in the future. Otherwise, we can inject some external constraints, so perhaps from XSM Newton or Chandra, where we could resolve deeper fields and theta AGN and use that as a constraint for the X-ray contamination. Otherwise, feel free to ask a few questions. I know I've rushed through the last bits, and the paper should be on archive if you want to read more.
Okay, and we do have indeed time for a few questions.
Thanks. Can you just clarify when you talked about the contribution of AGNs to the X-ray? I would naively thought that the X-ray observation, when the data is taken, it include everything. So I don't quite understand the logic of taking them out from the simulation.
Okay, so I guess perhaps I wasn't the most clear. So when we reproduce the cross correlation, we have all the gas on the sky from Flamingo, and we can produce the X-rays from that. we then have to add in our own point sources or point source contamination. So the point source contamination should naturally exist in the observations. So from the ROSAT or sky maps, we just have to somehow account for that, but it's hard to account for something we don't know is, how much is there.
Yeah. Okay, thanks.
In the back over here, your great talk. I'm wondering about the impact of Q-core on your X-ray signals. Do you have a sense that what fraction of the X-ray signals are coming from Q-core? Are they contributing more to your signal? Have you looked into sort of contribution of Q-coreness?
Personally, no. We didn't really give it a thought for this project itself, but there are, I know, 1 or 2 papers from Flamingo, and there should be for Colibri with discussing or pointing out cool cores with X-ray. But no, I don't imagine they would be overly impactful for what we've done, just with the ROSATs, all sky maps and resolution, but I could be wrong there. You'll have to check out a few of the other Flamingo projects.
Thanks for the talk. I have a question about the redshift evolution of the point sources. Because the observation is a projected power, and AGN evolved by a large fraction from Z0 to high Z. And so what is the effective redshift of this cross power?
If you give me a sec, I'll get back to that slide. No. Doesn't want to go. Okay. So when we apply our abundance matching, and you want to know just basically how the redshift difference of the AGN or point sources will affect it. So what we've done is we have all the gas out to redshift 0.5, and that is enough to contribute for, compared to 0.5 to gas to redshift 3, there's no difference in your cross correlation. For the point sources, there's really no difference in, we went to redshift of 4, went to redshift of 5, integrating, even to redshift of 8. There was no real change in the evolution there. I didn't consider anything less than that when adding in point sources. So.
I see. Okay, so the effective redshift must be below 0.5.
Yeah, below 4 even.
While the next speaker sets up, I have one more quick question. So when you talk about implementing external constraints, what's the biggest challenge there? Is it straightforward, or is it a major research project?
I think there's quite a few things to consider with the external constraints, whether that is in terms of, well, mainly you want them to be focused on resolving more of the faint AGN and reducing that, as that's the main or limiting factor with this. But if you were to put in additional constraints, looking again at the gas fractions or specific cluster masses, that would be quite useful as well. Thank you.